Greetings. You've reached the EA View. This is Kristin Fontana. I'm here with my team, our team together, and we're just going to be talking about Leo today. And we've got Rav Chahal from England. Welcome, Rav, and London, England. Deva Green. Deva is back, and Rose Marcus from Vancouver, Canada, and Stacie Pazura.
Hi.
Welcome back. So we are actually squeaking in Leo. It's like the last 3 days of Leo today while we're recording this. We had to do a little rescheduling, but we're squeezing it in. I'm still feeling the fire. I don't know about all you guys, but I'm feeling it. I'm very excited about our fingerprint of the month, who is the embodiment of courage. And when I look at this picture, that reminds me of, well, who's coming up. We'll talk about her a little bit later. But I wanted to ask you guys, what is your favorite quality or trait of the Leo archetype? Any of you?
Well, for me, I think of Barack Obama because, you know, here he is in this really professional, like conservative, well, I don't know, not conservative, serious role. That's what I'm trying to say. And he's just got so much swag, you know, like all the babies just gravitate towards him, you know, the way, like he'll bust into a dance and he just knows how to move. And he just, it's one of those lovely Leo archetypes that allows us to just enjoy people's personalities, you know, and I just, yeah, so that's mine.
He's one of my favorite for sure. Who else? What else, you guys?
One of my favorite qualities, and this is for sure when Leo is expressed to its highest, I love the ability to promote what's important in their heart, because from my understanding, seeing those with emphasize Leo can really give it their all to promote what's dearest to their heart because of how important it is for them and wanting to encourage others to take charge or to shine in the ways that they're very Leo-like meant to. And one of my favorites is the actor Sean Penn. I really enjoy his Leo energy because he puts his heart and soul into every character that he plays. And from my understanding, they're really, I hesitate to use the word, but they're really pivotal characters such as Harvey Milk. He also played a wonderful I Am Sam. He portrayed an autistic father fighting for his child. So, I mean, these are themes that are near and dear to the heart, and then you fully embody that, or you go to the lion's courage to promote or to give to that.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, for myself, for me, the Leo archetype I always think of childhood, fun and joy, where you don't have those responsibilities. You go with your heart, you know, you live in that moment and you just have fun. And a person that came to my mind though was actually J-Lo. She's a strong Leo, especially when it comes to her creativity, whether it's acting, her music. It's like you can see she's having fun in her career. Hence, it's been so many years, and she's always changing and just embodying who she is. And it's what you all said. It's the heart, it's the courage, it's just being true to herself. And then she shines, you know, more so recently as well. You know, she's 50 plus. Man, she looks and still has that young spirit, and so that really stands out for me.
And she married a Leo again.
Yes.
I mean, she's amazing. She's spectacular, you know, really, you know, and I mean, like she's so beautiful and she's so talented, and you know, her exposure on television with American Idol, which is, you know, one of my guilty pleasures, is I think that she really showed her heart, you know, when it came to supporting other artists, you know, which is really, really cool. So, you know, Leo is about standing in your own creative center, right? You know, and I always think that we are sun worshipers. We like big and bold people. It's like, that idea of a sun worshiper, we're always attracted to the sun. And, if those people are really shining, then maybe we get to shine a little bit too, by being with them, right? So it's totally lovely. I was thinking about a couple of Leo people. I don't know whether this is the part that you wanted to put this into, Kristin, but I have two different stories about Leo never liking to lose face, and controversial astrological figure, Noel Teal. Noel Teal was about 6'4", and he had been an opera singer, and on stage he was like unbelievable. One of the first times I saw him on stage was at UAC conference, and I was way at the back of the room, and he's this big figure on stage, and I mean really had that Leo presence. I hosted Noel here to do workshops, and there was one time when I went to pick him up at the airport, and he came off the plane in a wheelchair. And I went, "Oh my God, Noel, are you hurt?" And he said, "No, I just wanted to be first off the plane." And I don't know whether he never showed, if he was suffering, he never showed it. And that's that Leo pride thing, right? And I have a completely different story. I went to see recently, this is funny. I went to see recently Thor: Love and Thunder, which is in the theaters right now. Totally a lot of fun. Chris Helmsworth, who is a Leo, right? He plays Thor. And I'm not giving away the movie, but there's this one part where he goes to petition Zeus, and he's at the assembly, with all, have you seen the movie? There's a point where Zeus says, he has to come in disguise. So Zeus says, "Okay, reveal yourself." And he zaps him, and he takes off all his clothes, and Thor is standing there going, "You went too far," But later on, they kind of go, "Whoa, that was a pretty big deal." You're standing there naked, and he goes, "Well, I'm a god." I'm standing in my resilience. It was so funny. It was, Anyway, those are my two stories of Leo characters from two different extremes.
I love it. All right. Well, I want to talk about a special Leo today, who I think for a while was pretty famous, mildly famous, I would say, but just as an actor. And he really embodied three of the main qualities that I admire in a Leo. And he was incredibly artistic. At 20 years old, he painted this picture of James Dean. And he, let's see, James Dean has Mars and Leo on this guy's sun, the artist's sun sign. And so obviously very drawn to this character, and he looked a little like him. He left this world too early, passed away, not James Dean, the artist that I'm speaking about passed away a year ago, February, and he's a close family friend, and he left the world far too soon. But he was an incredible artist, an incredible actor, and he was just magic with our kids and the cousins. And he would become a child whenever there was holidays or whatever. He was on his knees, or he was bringing out the paints, or he was hiding behind doors and boom, those kinds of things. In fact, my son was named after him. That's how much we love this soul. And I wanted to share a story that is just a classic teaching for Leo. His name is Scott. We call him Big Scott. And he went to art school in London. And they were told at the beginning of one of the years of their projects that at the end of the year, there would be a very big project that they would be having to create or produce. That would be the lion's share of their grade, no pun intended. And so at the end of this year, they're all working very hard on this big project. It's going to be the majority of their grade. And in Scott's case, he was doing a painting, an oil painting. And they're putting their heart and soul into this thing. And everybody's done. They're just, they've given everything they have. They've put it all on the canvas, so to speak. And then they're sitting next to their work of art. And then the teacher said, "Okay, now you have to destroy it." Mm-hmm. So the lesson being, fact, I found a quote that says, the meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. So what the teacher was trying to, well, share with them that the importance of not attaching to what you're creating. You know, because as an artist, you're going to sell your work or what have you. Most likely, you're not going to decorate all your walls with what you're creating or painting because you're wanting to be famous, right? You're an artist. And so anyway, that was devastating for so many of them, but it was something that they had to go through. And if you think about a fifth house Pluto through the polarity, Aquarius, they are learning to detach from what they're creating. It is not really theirs. It's coming through them. And so I just thought, wow, you know, that must have been a really hard thing to have to do. I don't even know if they didn't have cell phones then. They were taking pictures of their artwork. They might have, I don't know, but I don't remember he had a picture of what he created, but it still bothered him 20 years later when he was sharing the story. So I just wanted to honor Scott today, Big Scott. And I hope he's resting peacefully. All right. So thanks you guys for all of that. By the way, he is a Scorpio rising too. Look at this painting. Is this not Scorpio Leo or what? Let's move into the transit of the month. Now, since we are so late in the game for Leo, you know, we like to look at the new moon or the full moon because, well, we're all tracking these lunar tides and we've got a new moon still in the month of August. And so Rose, you want to take this or give it a start?
Well, yes. And so you can see the new moon chart on the screen, and the new moon is at 4 degrees of Virgo. And so it is a new cycle in terms of the Virgo archetype, and that is a time to get back to work on the things that you might have that have been waylaid or so on. You know, Virgo is about getting back to work, getting back to school, getting back to routines, getting back to the improvement mandates that that you may feel are pending and necessary. And we were just talking about the Leo archetype. And you'll see, well, first of all, even before I go there, so that new moon in Virgo, we look to the depositor of Virgo, which is Mercury, or the ruler, which is just starting the sign of Libra. And so Mercury in the sign of Libra is about finding a better balance, you know, and that's certainly, you know, part of the influence of making improvement with the Virgo archetype, right? You know, where do you need to come into, you know, kind of a better state of equilibrium for yourself, and in terms of navigating your way through relationships and plans. And looking at that as well, too, we're just talking about the Leo month. This particular new moon, notice that Venus is sitting in Leo and opposing Saturn in Aquarius. And so this is to have, you know, with this Venus position here opposing that Saturn, which is also retrograde, you know, it is a statement about having some detachment in terms of your own creative process. What's best for you? That Venus in Leo, you know, what's best for me? How do I, you know, fit into the group, or where do I stand out? What's my unique contribution to the group? It's about seeing what works and what doesn't in terms of the relationships that you are now taking on. So, you know, there's a lot to be said with this. And notice the Venus placement is also just in square to planet Uranus, which has just turned retrograde on the 24th of August. So that's newly forming retrograde. All the outer planets, you see everything that is, you know, pretty much on the left side of the chart, you know, from the 10th house down to the 2nd house, every planet in that position is retrograde, right? You know, the personal planets, Mars, Venus, and Mercury are in direct motion here. So, you know, this is about getting in touch with what is most important to you, with having some new insights into your own creative process and so forth. Mercury is making a trine to Mars, and both Mercury and Mars are very, very important transits to watch. This new moon, Mercury just moving into Libra. Mercury is going to turn retrograde on the 9th of September in the sign of Libra, and it will back into Virgo to finish off its retrograde. From this new moon through until Mercury turns retrograde, Mercury and Mars are forming a nice trine. So that's an interesting position as well, too. And we are pre-recording this. Today is, I've even forgotten what date it is. Today, 21st, is it? 21st, yeah. And Mars is just moving into Gemini later on today. And Kristin and I are going to talk about Mars coming up in a future presentation. But Mars moving into Gemini is an important transit because it's going to be with us for 8 months, right? So this is setting up for, moving into the back to work season and so forth. And it's got lots of triggers here with sorting out your own creative process, sorting out your plans, how you are, what relationships are working, what relationships aren't working, what plans are working, what plans are not working. A key word for Virgo is discernment, right? In terms of that. Kristin, what do you see here in terms of the chart? So much going on in this new moon, right? Yeah.
I think Mars already entered Gemini when we're talking here this morning. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I had some weird dreams last night. I'll tell you, it's activating my 12th house already. So it's just like, wow, a lot of information coming through and one fell swoop. But, I really feel like, one thing I always teach and talk about and share with clients is that I'm always looking for an energy that might be offsetting the stress and a channel for you to move through, and some awareness you might glean from it. To have Mars squaring the sun and the moon can feel triggering big time. It can absolutely put you under stress, or I think, Rob, you're already talking about them going on strike, right? The transportation system. And
it's done it. Yes. The last couple of days. Yes, it's been chaotic.
Right. So things like that, like it can just really mess with your plans and your travel and things like that. But, it's not even retrograde yet. Mercury will be retrograde next month. However, Mercury, like you said, Rose, is making this beautiful trine to Mars. And so, there's a way to also, when you make the adjustments in your life, so you can create more balance, so you can enjoy your life better, so you cannot feel so stretched all the time. And so there's this offsetting energy that I feel like is quite beneficial. The ruler for Mercury in Libra is Venus in Leo. And really just going back to this Leo archetype that we love so much. Leos love to have fun. They love to create. They love to be in the sun. That's what we all need to be doing more of, not, right? So I would just say to make sure that you are creating space for the things that you love, creating space in a new moon that allows you to nurture what you need to keep you in balance, and to create space that allows you to tap into your own light, or your own sunshine, I think, that lives within inside of you. And so I love that expression, that I feel like being around Leo energy, or when Venus in Leo, it can feel like the sun is rising within you, or is rising within another. When you are warmed by the space that they are inhabiting, for example. And there's nothing like that feeling. So I would say just, the details of your life are going to be important, and not allowing yourself to be overwhelmed by the things that don't matter, right? So create time and space for the things that fill your heart and that don't make you feel like you're just all over the place. That's how I see this new moon.
I think that Mars position also too in square to the new moon, it's Gemini, and it is about entertaining possibilities, entertaining different ideas for yourself, having a different kind of conversation. And the fact that Mercury stays in trine to that Mars has a suggestion of despite the stress of the Mars to the new moon, it has a suggestion of trying something else might just work pretty nicely. And
say
so
that again. Trying something.
Trying something else, you're struggling, it isn't working this way, it isn't working this way, but this other track seems to be going very well. So, that's encouraging to help you to find some alternative way of creating and being and finding your center again. That's what I think this transit is about. So I'm very encouraged by the new moon. Of course, the Virgo piece can bring up the problems or the, whatever piece of that. But if you look around, you'll see, go with what works, go with what seems to be developing with some ease, and shift the attention from the stress end of things. That's what this transit will do.
One other aspect I didn't even see early on, but Mars is sextiling Jupiter. And so that's another, following what feels most natural for you without forcing it. So it will be revealed through the transit.
Yeah. A little bit of hands-on is very informing, right? The experiential track.
Anybody else want to add anything? No? Okay. Are we ready to dive into our fingerprint? Okay, we have chosen a signature, the signature fingerprint of the month, who had a birthday on the day we were intending to do this a couple of weeks ago. We've got Lenny here, who I was mentioning really she's a picture of courage in all of her efforts she's been making to take on a very large force in this country. So I'm excited to hear about what all you have to say about Liz Cheney, this chart, and a little bit more of her background as well, so we can lay a foundation. By the way, she's been a challenge for the progressive people. She's ultra conservative, and so the Democrats have really wrestled with this woman for a long time. But all of a sudden, it's like, wow, feels like one person who actually is living by ethics and what's best, ultimately the Constitution. And gosh, one person out of that whole party, it feels like. And it's a woman, so more power to her. Let's hear about her.
Yeah, you talk about somebody that's the embodiment of courage. And personally, like on this side of the pond, we don't really know much of her in terms of her past. She's in the news because of everything she's doing in America in terms of the politics, which I will get into. But you talk about somebody being born with a special destiny. There's your Leo archetype. She was born into a political family. Her father is the former Vice President Dick Cheney, who the 46th Vice President. And so she's been around politics and she's been influenced in that kind of environment. Her early childhood, she's experienced living between, I believe it was Casper and Washington, as her father worked through Congress. So she would have seen all that's been involved in that political world. She's ended up being educated, her education, where she received her Bachelor of Arts degree in Colorado College. Her final thesis paper was titled The Evolution of Presidential War Powers, which kind of sets the scene for what was to come in the future for her. She received her Doctor of Law in '96 from the University of Chicago, and she went on to actually practice being a lawyer for a bit. But her career in Congress came into light when she was first elected in 2016. And it was between the years of 2019 and 21. She served as the chair of the House Republican Conference. Before being elected to Congress, she has had a long career in politics. She's had several positions in the State Department during the George W. Bush administration. She's been a specialist in national security and foreign policy. She's worked as a Fox News analyst, and she's also a co-author with her father, written a book called Exceptional: Why the World Needs a Powerful America. So you can see how her career has kind of set the way for her where she is now, in terms of where she is today and where she has transpired through. And during the presidential reign of Donald Trump, I'm not sure if people know, but she's actually agreed with 93% of his policies. So she was never against Donald Trump in the beginning. And what's happened is through this, I'm not very familiar with American politics, but through this whole issue with the electoral polls and stuff, she stepped forward to say this is wrong. So for her stepping forward and showing her truth, she's gone against I believe most of the party, and she's also supported the second impeachment of former President Donald Trump. And this has subsequently led to her removal from the position of the House Republican Conference chair, and she was removed from this last May. And at that time, she actually said to reporters that she's committed to not embracing Donald Trump's big lie about the election. So she's following her truth and what she believes is the truth. And she's become the symbol for those Republicans opposing Trump, and is the highest ranking outspoken anti-Trump Republican in Congress. With all this, she's actually ended up becoming more prominent in the spotlight, I would say more internationally as well. Last year, she was included in the Forbes 50 over 50 list with other notable entrepreneurs, leaders, scientists, and creators. The Times magazine also included her in the list of the 100 most influential people in the world. And in April this year, she was awarded the Courage Award by the JFK Library Foundation. She was one of the 5 recipients for defending democracy at home and abroad. And in terms of her personal life as well, we know she's the daughter of the former vice president. She's married with 5 kids. There's another Leo strong archetype of children and creativity. She's actually also famously had an argument with her sister regarding same-sex marriage. In an interview in 2013, she actually stated that she believed in the traditional definition of marriage. And this caused a rift with her sister, who is openly gay. And even their father supported her sister in allowing her to follow her freedom in what felt right for her, with the slogan, "Freedom means freedom for everyone." And it was quite recently that Liz came forward and has said that she she revised what she had said back at that time. She had time to work through the issues with her sister and said that it's a personal issue, very personal for my family. And I believe my dad was right, and my sister and I have had that conversation. This is an issue we have to recognize as human beings, that we need to work against discrimination of all kinds in our country, in our state. And that kind of shows where she follows what she believes is her integrity, where her power lies. And she's not afraid to kind of ruffle the feathers, but knowing that she's stepping in her power and her creative truth, to be honest. And we can see from her birth chart right in front of us there, with her Pluto in the 5th house Leo, she was always going to have that power and creativity, being a stepping stone in her soul's evolutionary journey. Yeah. So Deva, would you like to expand on that position?
Yeah, kind of going off or dovetailing from what you've been sharing, that from my understanding too, very briefly touching upon the South Node in Scorpio, conjunct Neptune in the 7th, seeing the Pluto being in Virgo in the 5th, it's exactly that readjustment of how she's using her creativity for what purposes, for what motivations, for what's intentions, to, in a sense, from my view, be willing to completely lose power for what she believes for, or for what she believes the higher purpose is, seeing that Scorpio in the 7th conjunct Neptune. So anybody who she's been affiliated with or connected through who's had these large prominent positions of power, she's willing to go through the fire of saying, that's fine. If I need to lose all that, then that's exactly what I'm going to do. And look at that polarity point, Pisces in the 11th house, in terms of what EA can reveal and how that fundamental lesson of detachment, that lesson of being able to let go of what you've created, so to speak, in order to gain, or in order to liberate from the limitations of the past that you've also been sharing, Rav, from her background in terms of where she's growing to and the adjustments that she's making now, seeing Pluto in Virgo in the 5th, and North Node being in Taurus in the 1st, relative to the polarity point, standing on her own, absolutely pioneering and staying rooted or centered in what her values are in order to do that. And in my point of view, that's a way of, with the Virgo in the 5th, showing that, or reflecting that she's atoning, or that she's correcting possible errors of the past in terms of how she's used that front and prominent center, and where she's growing to now from her willingness to essentially lose it all. That's my point of view.
I wanted to add something because I'll never forget being in class with your dad, Deva, and it was probably a 9th house Pluto discussion, but he asked, how many of you would be willing to die for what you believe in? And it was funny because almost everybody raised their hand. And he says it's easy to say you would in the moment, until it really comes down to it. When push comes to shove, people can be big talkers. We all can be big talkers when we think we can pull something off. I mean, she does have, look at that 29-degree moon in Sag in the 9th house, in combination with that 5th house Pluto. So she walks the talk. I may not be on board with a lot of her policies, conservative ways, but I am impressed by her in so many ways now, and I think that she's evolving herself in a lot of ways, through the sister, and but not being so rigid in her own beliefs. And just because you believe something doesn't mean it's true is the big message. But I just wanted to share that. And so she really is saying what she means and means what she says, and she's willing to follow through on that.
Yeah, totally. And you mentioned the 29 degrees moon in Sagittarius, and being in that critical degree, we can see that it's an end of a cycle of development for her emotionally, in terms of her emotional nature. So she's reaching a cycle that she's ending of lifetimes of patterns that she needs to close in order to evolve forwards. And this is her stepping into her truth, hence the 9th house,
As well, Rob, it's so the moon in Sag is squaring her Saturn in Pisces, which is retrograde. I mean, I'm sure she's completely felt so disillusioned by her own peers in the party. Absolutely. Like, what the heck is going on? It is so disillusioning to experience that. You think that everybody's on board, everybody's this, that, the other thing, and then be feeling completely like the rug's been pulled out from beneath you. The ruler of Saturn and Pisces is Neptune in Scorpio on her south node. In the 7th house, also retrograde. So probably the same people that have betrayed her before, or just we're all talkers and afraid of actually following through with what's true. So that's an intense square to finish off that cycle with.
Yeah, because the image I get just when you said that is maybe there was a conversation with her and her colleagues privately, where most of them probably agreed with her. But when push came to shove and standing in their power, they've all hidden, they've all, not embraced their truth. They're and having to do it alone. Yeah. Kristin, do you want to actually expand on that Amazon retrograde? Because that really falls into her kind of power and her being.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a perfect segue here, and then we can have Stacie and Rose finish with theirs. So Amazon is the female warrior. In Amazon, there is an asteroid in the belt between Mars and Jupiter where all the asteroids exist. That is called Amazon. It just got an E on the end. And so to have Amazon, it is retrograde as well in the 8th house. That is literally like, it's digging in within herself and accessing the warrior within, right? And it is on that, what is that south node of Uranus? Yes, in the 8th house. And so you can see through all these aspects, you can see this is a major relive for her in terms of getting her power back, empowering herself, willing to put her life on the line for the truth, attaching to nothing, attaching to no outcomes, except the only thing she attaches to is the truth. And, with the moon also in Sag as well, just restating that. And so some things are worth dying for, as she is obviously showing us through this archetype. And I would also say that to have Amazon and Sag in the 8th house, her going toe to toe with somebody who's really activated an enormous part of the very dangerous part of our population, very dangerous, is, you can imagine the death threats that she's getting and her family are getting, but she is unflinching. In the hearing, she's unflinching. She's completely steady Eddie, Taurus rising, and she is no bullshit, excuse my French, and it's all about the bottom lines. And that Amazon placement is so perfectly is reflecting how she's tapping into that wild just core of who she is, to fight till the death. And I don't mean that to sound dramatic. Whatever it takes is really what it's about for her. And I know that this is, as it has been written, she knows the most important work she will ever do in her life is to make sure that Trump is never able to run for president again, and that he's held to the lies that he's been telling. That's her mission in this life. That is her special sense of destiny, to expose 8th house, the truth. Sag.
Thanks. Yeah. Stacie?
I feel like I got nothing left. Everyone's made the points that I was going to make. But that's okay. No,
Name in your own words. It's okay. Say it again. There's,
So, with Saturn retrograde, one thing that I have Saturn retrograde, so I know a little bit about this. And it's when a planet is retrograde, it's an archetype that's going to turn you inwards, and it's going to kind of put you in on yourself, where you're going to ask yourself questions. You're going to, I don't know how to say this right now, but you know what I mean. It's not so much dependent on other people. There is an absolute need to check in with yourself and to really evaluate things for yourself. And, with the retrograde, there's never quite a satisfaction, because it's a liberating archetype, or at least that's the intention of a retrograde, is liberation. And we absolutely see that. And with her Saturn being at 29 degrees Pisces and retrograde, we see that there's, some previous, a lot of work in developing her sense of authority. And not only in order to develop her personal authority, she has needed to really engage the lessons of, inner security. There's a square to the moon. I think, what is it? It's a crescent moon, I think.
No, it's a last quarter.
It's a last quarter moon. Okay.
Oh my gosh,
yeah. And so,
isn't it exact to the minute almost? I think that's last quarter, or is it disseminating? It's a very edge. Yeah.
I think it's disseminating, actually.
Disseminating by like 1 minute.
Yes, it's disseminating to the moon. I was thinking, I was also mixing it up with Venus, because there's also a square to Venus, which is a crescent square. And so this is like a lot of personal work that she has had to do in her life. And it's very clear that she's very accomplished in her her authority. She's just, there was a quote that I heard. I was watching a 60-minute thing, and they said her emotion is like algebra. However, yeah, and when what we see is, like, yes, that's true, but we also have to consider like this situation that she had with her sister, where she initially stood against gay marriage, and then later came back and she said the words, "I was wrong," because she was questioned, like, why, what was that? How do you still feel that way? And she said, "I was wrong." And that takes a lot from someone who is like her, where, she is serious, she's a serious person. And to like really have the humility to admit I was wrong is just such a show of strength, in my opinion. And I just think she is doing her Saturn so beautifully. Like, I hope I can be like her, if I'm ever needed to rise to the occasion. So yeah, I guess that's
excellent.
The sun moon blend is gibbous. Yeah, and so gibbous is likened to a Virgo archetype, which is again, crises is a vehicle for growth and perfecting the form, right? So it's going to suggest a continuum of a work in progress, I think, in terms of bringing the truth forward and standing in truth. And I wanted to point out Vesta, which is sitting in the 4th house. It's a sacred flame sitting at 21 degrees of Leo, which is in square to the nodal axis. So in our evolutionary astrology paradigm, that is a skipped step. And Leo is the archetype of special destiny. And Vesta is the sacred flame. It's a sacred oath. And so we might suggest that this skip step would bring, Liz, kind of that sense of this lifetime as being a critical one. I mean, how many times is there a circumstance like this where, this whole issue of, going after Trump, it is an exceptional circumstance and an exceptional moment in history, really, for the country, really. The 4th house and Vesta is the mythology of keeper of the hearth, keeper of a sacred flame, as keeper of sacred oath, right? So she tended to the fire. And Vesta, and Hestia is her Greek name. Forego the opportunity to get married in order to take care of the hearth. Now, there's so much to say about the archetype. It's a really, really big one. But I think that Vesta is one thing of being willing to give up the career that she has had, in order for her to pursue what she thinks is her sacred oath to protect the people. And by the way, the 4th house archetype, the Cancer archetype, is the archetype of the populace or the people, right? So she's going to feel that sense of, Pluto in Virgo, a servant to her country in that very dynamic way. When you see something that is square the nodal axis, then the point to make is both the north node and the south node are relative to the past, and that north node in Taurus, her being staunch worth in her beliefs and so on. With the Scorpio south node, Neptune conjunct Scorpio in that 7th house, as all of you have said, it's going to have an exposure to being manipulated in the past and so forth, right? The fact that the ruler of the North Node Taurus is in the sign of Cancer in the 3rd house. There may have been other lifetimes, or, even in this one where she towed the party line, or, maintained the appearance of, because it was difficult. Exposure would lead to death, perhaps. Or at least death of a career or death of a position, or so on. So we see how important that Vesta is in terms of her really, following what she feels is her sacred oath to the people, and so forth. And it's fascinating. I was looking at, and by the way, I just, in doing my research today, the Latin word for hearth is focus. And this woman is definitely very, very focused. In looking at, we don't have the chart of it, but the progressed positions, Mars is, the progressed Mars position is also in Leo. It's about 19 degrees and so forth. It's squaring that nodal axis. And it will continue to trigger the nodal axis in terms of the next about 10 years of her life, in terms of this skip step of really honoring the commitment she made to the Constitution and to the beliefs that she has, in terms of doing honor and representing. So I think that this is a special lifetime for her, and I think that she has to stay the course no matter the personal cost. And I don't even know, really, I mean, I don't know this person, and I'm not an American. I don't even know whether she thinks that the forfeit of her, she just lost her seat in the election, right? I don't know whether she feels that to be as important as the role that she's playing right now to bring justice where Trump is concerned, right? So maybe she doesn't even see it as a sacrifice. Maybe she sees it as her absolute soul duty.
Yeah, it's her mission.
Her mission.
Yeah, I mean, Rose, like, I could not agree with you more. I think that she, like, her sense of, because we're talking, just coming back to that Saturn retrograde in Pisces, I mean, we're talking about the ultimate ideals, right? The
Right.
things that really matter for everyone. And there's just no discrimination. And she's just there, and she's looking around herself, and no one has the courage to stand up to this crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just leave it there. But I mean,
Yeah,
what
there's
courage for her to take it on,
Yeah, there's some quote that she did. I don't have it exactly, but what's right is right.
Yeah.
And it, like, just sums it up right there, right?
Yeah.
Taurus is very tunnel, tunnel, or very limited, and it might, the ultra conservative, the thing about the wrestling that she had with gay marriages, and the rejection of that to begin with, but then coming back to seeing that, it's also that working out of that skip step. Don't you think so, Stacie?
Absolutely. Period.
Being able to,
Yeah,
Scorpio, it's utterly transform, what you believe in, what's right is right. And that would be, that moon in Sagittarius, that Amazon in Sagittarius, right?
Yes, and getting to the bottom of it, just getting to the bottom of it.
Yeah. She has a Saturn return as well coming up, but doesn't she? Her second Saturn return is
a couple
of
of
years away. Yeah.
I really like too her interaction with those who you could tell were really fearful or intimidated to come out with what had been happening. And I found her interactions with them very filled with integrity and filled with strength, because the way she was speaking to them was from the bottom of her heart, thanking them for their courage to stand up and speak the truth, no matter what was going to happen, no matter what the personal consequence, and her ability to hold that, seeing the South Node in the 7th, and to understand or to hold a sensitivity, also seeing that the Cancer energy in the 3rd to what those who were being called to speak were feeling, and how she was able to really encourage and coax them out of that and say, look, we need you to do this right now. Now we need you more than ever. And the people who were really tuned into that, I found her interactions with them and her diplomacy, just not to over-aggrandize, but I found it impeccable. I really did.
Yeah.
It's that Virgo energy. When you tap into it to its highest, it can become impeccable.
You know, it's interesting, that third house Cancer too, you know, listening to her speak. And, you know, it's every word is carefully chosen. And that every word, that carefully chosen, clear, concise, pointed, you know, really allows for the listener to feel secure with the words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know exactly what she's saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's so clear. Yeah. All right. Thanks, you guys. That was wonderful. And September is going to be very lively, I have a feeling, because they'll be back doing more hearings, at least one more. I don't know how many more after that. They keep getting more evidence and information, people coming forward. And that may be occurring during the Mercury retrograde. So we have all the outer planets retrograde as of the 24th, starting with Uranus. And then that's 6 planets retrograde in September. Amazing.
Get ready to liberate.
All right. Okay, let's move on. And we've got the movie of the month that you see. There we go. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, Amy Adams is a Leo. This movie's excellent. If anyone hasn't seen it. Oh, okay, go ahead.
I haven't seen.
Do you happen to remember if she has some Virgo too? It's the perfect Leo Virgo combo. Anyway, yeah, no, I thought this was a great pick for Leo, because it's a story about a woman who essentially empowers herself through her creative talents, and the person who she's involved with, which is also a part of Leo, is attracting very narcissistic partners at times. So she attracts someone who essentially parasitically takes her artwork for his own and tries to aggrandize himself by saying he's the one who did her art. And at first, because she's living with him and he's supporting her, she backs off. She goes, okay. But then through different tensions, she's catalyzed to take charge of her creative energy and her creative works. And she ultimately comes out and says, no, the ones who did these paintings are myself. And she's able to take back control of her own her own life path. She's able to rebuild and self-empower through detaching herself from that type of parasitic energy that was feeding off her own creative energies, and activating the courage to reclaim what was hers. And it's super cool because in the movie she's honored for, I won't give it away, it's a great movie, but it is known who does the paintings. And that in its own right can really speak to the Leo energy too, of at times taking back what's rightfully yours, or creatively taking charge of your life through not allowing oneself to be used for other people's benefit.
Yeah, and this is a true story. This movie is based on American artist Margaret Keane and her second husband, Walter Keane. And so he would sign his name at the bottom of the painting, but it's a true story that took place in the 1950s. So imagine in the 1950s, a woman taking her husband, like, what are you doing? I'm the one painting these. So that makes it even that much more spectacular. Good for her. That took a lot of courage.
I would like to pose a question to all of you, because one of the dynamics of Leo can be that there is this urge to self-actualize and to create something special and to take charge. And sometimes the world is indifferent. Maybe somebody, like maybe you might feel like, oh my gosh, this is like the height of my creativity and just excited to share it. And then the environment doesn't always show anything. And so I don't know, I think that's one of the struggles of Leo, of the Leo archetype, is having the courage to put yourself out there. And because you really can't be dependent on the external validation. You've really got to just do it for yourself, and whatever you're doing, do it for yourself. But what advice do any of you have for people who might get tangled up in that?
Well, I think, like you said, just do it anyway, you know. There's you guys heard that Martina McBride song? I'm going to read the lyrics to you. So yeah, if there's something in you that wants to create some, you know, whatever it is, you know, just like the example I gave with all those students having to destroy what they had created, they can't attach to keeping it, they can't attach to any of it, right? So, I mean, I think we're all learning that lesson, to do it anyway, to do it for the joy of it, to do it because it makes you happy, because it makes you feel alive. So here's my lyrics. These can be my inspirational lyrics, but she says, you can spend your whole life building something from nothing. One storm can come and blow it all away. Build it anyway. You can chase a dream that seems so out of reach, and you know it might not ever come your way. Dream it anyway. God is great, but sometimes life ain't good. And when I pray, it doesn't always turn out like I think it should, but I do it anyway. This world's gone crazy. It's hard to believe that tomorrow will be better than today. Believe it anyway. You can love someone with all your heart for all the right reasons. In a moment, they can choose to walk away. Love them anyway. God is great, but sometimes life ain't good. And when I pray, it doesn't always turn out like I think it should, but I do it anyway. You can pour your soul out singing a song you believe in, that tomorrow they'll forget you ever sang. Sing it anyway. I sing, I dream, I love anyway. Anyway, I love that, the lyrics to that
I love
song.
That.
Do you know that song? It's a country song. All right. Yeah, I think do it anyway. It's as simple as it could be. And there's plenty of artists that are so far ahead of their time, and maybe they become famous long after they're gone, right? Whether they're a musician or an artist. And, you know, so sometimes it takes a while for the world to catch up. And I think being artists as well with new ideas. I mean, 75% of the population's in a consensus state. So not everybody's going to get this, you know, individuated expression of who you are, right? So any last thoughts from any of you before we close today? All right, well, I wanted to close from something from the Pluto book. It's Fifth House Plutos, Leo. We all have a polarity. We're all evolving to the opposite house and sign of that Pluto. And we all have a fifth house. And we have an 11th house. So Jeff Green writes, by learning the necessary lessons of objectivity and detachment, fifth house Pluto individuals can realize that they are not the source of creativity. They are a channel for the expression of the creative principle in the universe. So may we all be a channel of the highest vibration to allow this world to evolve one day at a time. Namaste. Aw, shine. That was my inspirational message. All right. Yeah. Thanks, Stacie. All right. Book for those of you who don't have this yet. A bunch of wonderful authors and an excellent book on natural expressions of the archetypes. Driven by, dedicated to and by Linda Johnson. And for those of you who are just tuning in, there is a website for you to learn more about evolutionary astrology and a message board there where you can go and post questions. And if any of you are interested in becoming a more serious student and getting the original teachings by the founder of EA, Jeffrey Wolf Green, please check out the website for more information about that. And we will be back next month to talk about Virgo. It'll be September 10th. But of course, the webinar will be available through YouTube after that. So thanks, Rob and Deva and Rose and Stacie. It's always a wonderful time together sharing this great work. Take care.